Hi guys, it's me, Lisa Martinez, with another silhouette tutorial. Today's tutorial is using the conical / warp function in Silhouette. This function is going to help you when you're creating images or projects for possible sublimation, and not only that, but for vinyl. For vinyl projects, this is going to be extremely helpful when you've got something that's kind of curved like a coffee mug that you want to put vinyl on. So instead of cutting the little slits in your vinyl, this will actually curve your wording or your project slightly. So when you do apply it onto the coffee mug or to your project that is slightly maybe curvatured, it's going to actually warp it or arc it in those particular spots. So I will go ahead and show you how to do that. And I'm going to show you both the coffee mug and the sublimation process. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to share my screen as always. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, let's see. Let me just close out of this. Sorry, let me share my screen again. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we are in Silhouette. So the one thing you want to remember is this function is only going to be available for the more for the upgrades. So this will not be available in the free package. You know, when you download it for free, it will not be available. So make sure that if you do want to use this, make sure that you do get one of the upgraded versions so you are able to use this function. So the first thing we want to do is I'm actually going to use a coffee cup. So the first thing we want to do is you want to insert your image. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab an image from my hard drive. I don't know if anybody's like me, they have a ton of images. And I'm just going to grab, so I've actually had to move a bunch of my images and backgrounds onto a, what's it called? An actual external hard drive. I went blank there for a second. An external hard drive just to free up some space on my laptop. So let's see. Let's just do this one. Copy is always a good idea. Okay. So the first thing is, say for instance, we're going to do a coffee mug and we're going to use vinyl. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we've got our mat correctly selected. So we're going to select our machine. Number two, we're going to select our mat, which is just a regular 12 by 12. And the media size, we're going to select auto, which is going to be 12 by 12 to correspond with our mat. If you want to see your cut border, we can go ahead and select show cut border. This way we can see if you notice there's a red outline now, that is going to be where our cutting border is. This way, that's only as far as the machine will allow you to. Anything outside this, it will not cut. Some people like that function. To me, I can't tell the difference with it on or off. It's still going to cut the same. So first thing we're going to do is this image did come out awfully big. So I'm just going to go ahead and just size it down a little bit. So that's probably still a little bit too big. Okay, that'll work. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you is here is just a regular coffee cup that I purchased from Dollar Tree. So there's a few measurements that we need to get. Again, this is if we were doing a vinyl type of project, because, you know, of course it's curved. So sometimes normally when you do the vinyl, you would have to cut little slits so it lays down flat. Well, with this function, it's actually going to kind of curve or warp the image that we selected. This way you won't have to do that. So the measurements that we need to take is going to be the top, this inner portion, the height, and then this bottom portion. So if you want to, we'll go ahead and take those measurements now. And I can't see, so let's get some glasses. So this is coming in at about maybe it's not right at 3 1/4, it's a little under. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 3.15. I'm just going to write these measurements down. Okay, so now we want to measure the height of our cup. So our cup is going to be it's about 4. And I'm measuring 4 all the way down here to the bottom. If you didn't want to do that, if you wanted to leave this room, we could stop it right here at this edge, and that would be at about 3.5. So we'll go ahead, let's just do that, 3.5. And then we want to measure this bottom piece right here. And this is going to be right at 2 inches. Okay. 2 inches. Okay, so we've measured the circumference here, the height, and then the circumference down here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our silhouette again. So the first thing we want to do is we've imported our image. We want to make sure our image is highlighted. The next thing you want to do is you want to go down to this arrow. So last week we talked about rhinestones. This week we're going to go right underneath it because it does not give me the functionality. There's not enough space on the bar. So I get this little arrow, and you've got several different options here, but we're looking for this one, which is the warp panel. So let's go ahead and click on that. And so you've got some other options here. We can warp the image completely. We can warp our text, or we can do the conical wrap. And actually that is what we're going to do. So our image is selected. We want to do the conical wrap. And now you've got this a cylinder tumbler image. So we've got it selected. So now we want to do conical warp, select our image. So as you can see, we've got this border / template around our image. And if you noticed, and right now it's just, it did the template according to the measurements that populated. This is why we took our measurements beforehand, so we could enter our measurements for our project. And if you noticed, the top is a little bit wider versus the bottom. And if you also notice, it looks like our image kind of widened with that. But let's go ahead and populate our images. I mean, our measurements. So the first one, and if you can see up here, we measured this outer portion, and this one is saying is 3 1/4, and I was showing ours a little bit shy of 3. Three and a quarter. So let's see here. There we go. I'm just going to do 3.15 because it was a little bit off. Okay. Our height was 3.5. So we're going to go down to this last one. This one is showing a 7. Again, we're doing a coffee mug. Again, you can see how it's already warping. And then our bottom was 2 inches. Okay. So we can actually adjust our image. So if you notice, when I clicked off of it, it's you can see how it warped around here. But because this is a little bit too big, we can adjust it. So for instance, say we wanted this to be a little bit smaller. This spacing right here is going to allow us to adjust it. So there we go. Because it was a little bit big when we first got it. So let's go ahead and let's do 2 point. Let's see, it's 3.5. Let's see what 2.5 looks like. That might be a little small, but that's okay. Okay, so that's how you adjust the size to make it bigger or smaller. So remember, we did start off bigger, so we wanted to adjust it down so we could see the entire thing. This bottom one, this is going to move it up and down. So right now it's at the top. So let's go ahead and just move our sliding arrow a little bit. And you can see it starting to come down. That looks about centered. So if we wanted to go exactly 5, there we go, like 5. We could do that. Now, if we think that our image is a little bit too small, we can adjust it. And I think let's go ahead and adjust it. Let's see, it's sometimes a lot easier. So if you notice, the bigger we made the image, the height, the ability to move it up and down lessens because we've made it bigger, so it's taken up more space. So there's not a lot of room to adjust it up and down because we're trying to get it as big as we want to. Again, if you notice, this word right here, idea, it's already curved. So when it cuts, it's gonna actually cut it with a curvature to it. And we can zoom in. And you can see how it's slightly curved. And that's exactly what we want, because when we put it on our cup, it's going to have that curvature that we're going to need down below. So if we were ready to cut this, we could actually go ahead and move this off to the side up. We could place it on our mat exactly where we want it to cut, and then we can then we can send it to our machine, and then we can cut it. So that's if we were designing something for vinyl project. And if you wanted to, you can hit apply. And when you hit apply, this little pinkish reddish template will disappear. So if we hit apply, so let's go ahead and click on it. Hit apply. That will actually disappear, and then you will just have the image. But if you notice, it's not as curved with that. So make sure that you do have it on the template. So that's a really helpful tool, especially when you've got something curved and you want it a slight curve. Again, if we were to select this and say, you know, we were doing something more along of these measurements, we could actually increase it a little bit. And let's see, let's make the top kind of like super big. And let's bring the bottom down. So if you can see, the word idea is starting to kind of squish together to kind of make it more narrow. And the word coffee is kind of starting to look a little bit on the curvature side. So let's just bump this up a little bit more. So I don't know if, let's see if we zoom in. Oops, that's too much. Now it's too little. Sorry, y'all. Okay, let's make our little coffee image bigger. There we go. So see how the idea is getting smushed and coffee is starting to widen. Now, if we were to bring the bottom portion a little bit more proportion, you can see how that starts to widen up. If we were to bring the top portion to make it smaller, you can see how that starts to taper in at the top and the bottom starts to widen. So again, very useful, especially it helps when, because if we were to go and cut this, we hit send. You can see how the coffee is tapered and the word idea is wide. So if our cup was wide on the bottom, you would have enough room, or it would cut it enough, big enough for that bottom width to, for that angle, for that warp to cover. So so this is helpful. This way you're not sitting there cutting the little slits or trying to make it proportion that the top is bigger than the bottom or vice versa. So this is I found this very helpful. I haven't done the vinyl yet, but what I do use it for is a sublimation tumbler. So again, I've got me a sublimation tumbler, and this is slightly kind of tapered, or it's kind of it's not completely straight. So again, we're going to do the same thing on a regular tumbler. We're going to measure the top. So this is approximately, we'll do 3.5. Okay, we'll do our bottom. Which is 2.5. So right now our top is going to be slightly wider than the bottom, but we could actually see that because it looks like the bottom was slightly tapered. And then we're looking at approximately 7 inches tall. Okay, so back to the same thing that we did. So let's just start anew. This is going to be our tumbler. Oops, excuse me. Oops, let me share my screen, sorry. Okay, I'm going to grab a background. I'm just going to pick a full background. Say I wanted to do a full tumbler wrap on this. Let's see. Bear with me as I find it quick. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so here is our my image that I want to use as my full tumbler wrap. Say I want to sublimate this tumbler and I want this entire wrap to fit on this tumbler that we just measured. So the first thing we want to do is let's just go ahead and size it down a bit. Okay. Then we want to make sure that we're in the warp panel and we're on the conical warp icon. So we'll go ahead and hit warp selected, which is our image. And let's go ahead and enter our measurements. So our top was 3.5. So let's go ahead and put 3.5. Our bottom was 2.5. And it's pretty neat to see this cylinder start changing when you start entering the numbers. Okay, we're at 2.5, and then we are at 7 inches tall. So there we go. And so our image looks a little small. So here's our template. Here is our tumbler, which somewhat mimics the one we just measured. So that's a good thing. So now I've noticed that here is my full template. This is what would be completely go around and wrap around my tumbler. But my image is not that big. So let's go ahead and adjust it down here. So if you notice, it starts arcing, and there we go. So if you noticed, it went from the square to that curvature template that we created. Now we'll go ahead and hit apply. Now I know and I've done these with tumblers, so you do have to play around with the measurements a little bit. I did notice that. So don't get it, it can be a little frustrating, but don't get, try not to get too frustrated. So the next thing, so there is our template, and you can see the nice curvature, which means this top portion is because our top was a little bit wider than our bottom. So the next thing I would personally do is I would actually go ahead and measure our tumbler all the way around. So this is looking like it's 10 3/4 wide. So I would go ahead and change this here to 10 3/4, 10.75. Okay, and then just again, for reassurance purposes, I would just remeasure the height, because it looks like the height populated at 7, almost 7.5. But actually, in actuality, our tumbler is 7 inches tall. So let's go ahead and just change this to 7 inches. And we now have a complete wrap for our tumbler. So with that, we could now print it and sublimate it. Again, when you're doing the tumblers and you're doing those full wrap type of images, you might want to remeasure just to make sure, because it's easier to adjust it than trying to print. Also, a suggestion that I always suggest is when you're doing, for instance, this tumbler wrap, instead of using up your sublimation ink, your sublimation paper, print it to a regular printer. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just print it for size purposes. Cut it out, measure it, and see if it's going to work. It's cheaper to use regular copy paper and your regular printer ink and adjust your measurements, your height or your width, versus using up good expensive sublimation ink and sublimation paper. It can get costly, especially if you reprint it 2 or 3 times when you're trying to tweak something. I always recommend doing that even for vinyl projects. For the cup, print it out real quick. It takes, you know, your printer paper is super inexpensive along with regular printer ink versus cutting up vinyl and messing that up. Because I know depending on the vinyl that you choose, holographic vinyl is it's not inexpensive. It can be a little bit pricier than plain vinyl. Even when I vinyl cups after I've glittered them or whatever the case is, and I have to put a water slide, tattoo, or vinyl. Yes, I size it, I measure it, but I still print it out on my regular printer and I put it on here. Because number one, I can see a visual before it's printed. Number two, if I have to make any types of adjustments, again, it's just so much cheaper than sitting here and wasting water-side paper, vinyl, and all those items that can add up fairly quickly, especially if it doesn't print, it doesn't cut correctly, it adds up. And then you're frustrated, you've wasted a whole sheet of pretty vinyl that cost you, you know, $2-3 versus just a quick print on your regular printer if you had one. Measure it and then print it. This way you can tweak it, like, oh, I wonder what it's going to look like, maybe 1 inch bigger. I mean, say you're putting somebody's name on these tumblers and you measure it at 3 inches and it's this big. Yeah, I like it. You cut it, it's too big. When you print it out, cut it out. And I do a rough cut. I mean, literally, I just cut the name out just super rough, and I just tape it on there, step back, take a look, and then I can adjust my measurements. Oh, you know what? I really think it needs to be bigger, smaller. I reprint it again. I've even taken the, if I'm doing I'm going to stick with the name. If I'm doing somebody's name and I'm like, well, I think I might want it 2.5 inches, maybe 3, maybe 3.5. I'll print those 3 different sizes, print them out, cut them, and then I can play with it versus trying to cut it out with my vinyl. And I've wasted vinyl 3 times and I'm only going to use 1. So that's just a time-saving tip. It can be a cost-saving tip. Again, just run it through a regular printer, save you on sublimation ink, sublimation paper, and vinyl. It works for me. Just a quick tip that I used, and maybe that I could pass that on to you. Maybe that'll be helpful to you if you're struggling with trying to size things. Because I know sometimes in our heads we want it 3 inches. When we get it on here, we've printed it, we've done all this work, we're ready to stick a decal, something, and we think 3 inches all along, and really we should have done it maybe 2 inches because it's just overbearing. Again, send it to the printer, cut it out really quick. Time saving. It'll save you on material as well. So I hope these tips were helpful. It's a really neat feature that I think that is helpful, especially when you're doing these curvature, these coffee mugs, these tumblers, to set up a template or even to cut them out. It's going to go ahead and create the warp or the shape that we need for these cups. So again, any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me in the group, message me. I'm here to help you. So until next time, I hope you have a great day and happy crafting. Bye, guys.